You were taught to focus on the wrong money problems. Skip coffee, cancel Netflix, track every dollar, and while you were counting pennies, the real leak stayed hidden. In your salary, in your debt, and your investment fees. In the system running your life. That's how smart, hardworking people do everything right and still feel behind. Years ago, Ramit Sethi wrote, "I will teach you to be rich," to challenge that entire model. And despite the title, this was never really a book about being flashy. It was a book about freedom, the freedom of knowing your bills are handled, the freedom of spending on what you love without guilt, the freedom of not carrying money stress in the back of your mind every day, because that quiet stress changes people. It follows them into restaurants, into relationships, into vacations they can't enjoy, into careers they stay trapped in because uncertainty feels dangerous. You can look successful from the outside and still feel financially fragile on the inside. That's more common than most people admit. A good salary doesn't automatically create peace. Sometimes it just upgrades the size of your problems. Bigger rent, bigger lifestyle, bigger expectations, better looking stress. So people respond the only way they were taught. Cut more, track more, try harder, be stricter, and for a few days it feels productive. Then real life returns. You get tired, you overspend, something unexpected happens. You stop tracking, you feel guilty, you restart next month. This loop has convinced millions of people that they lack discipline. But discipline is not the real issue. Design is. If your financial life only works when you are motivated, your financial life does not work. Because motivation is temporary, stress is real, life is unpredictable. Systems survive what moods cannot. That is the real shift in this book. Stop trying to become a perfect money person. Build a money system that works even when you're imperfect. That one idea alone can remove years of unnecessary shame. Because most people are not failing due to character flaws. They are failing because they are managing money manually. Every month becomes a fresh battle. Every decision drains energy. Every purchase becomes a moral debate. Should I buy this? Do I deserve it? Can I afford it? Am I being irresponsible? That constant friction is exhausting. And exhaustion leads to avoidance. This is why many intelligent people know what to do and still don't do it. Not because they're lazy, because they're mentally tired. Now here's where Ramit changes the game. He says, stop obsessing over tiny wins and focus on the big wins. This sounds simple. It is not, because tiny wins feel satisfying. Skipping coffee feels productive. Canceling a subscription feels responsible. Using a coupon feels smart. And sometimes those things help, but they rarely change your life. A higher salary can. A lower interest rate can. Lower investment fees can. An automated investment system can. One major improvement can outperform years of tiny sacrifices. That's leverage. And leverage is how adults escape constant effort. Imagine two people. One spends 10 years finding ways to save $20 here and there. The other negotiates a raise, lowers fees, and invests automatically. Both are trying, but only one is aiming at the right targets. This is why some hardworking people stay stuck. They're solving the wrong level of problem. You don't need more effort on low-value decisions. You need clarity on high-value decisions. That starts with income. Many people treat salary like weather. Something to endure, something to complain about, something outside their control. But income is often more flexible than people think. Not always instantly, not always easily, but far more than most assume. Negotiation matters, skills matter, positioning matters, asking matters. A single raise doesn't just change this month. It changes every future month. Every percentage increase compounds across years. Yet people spend more time choosing a phone case than preparing for compensation conversations. That is not a judgment. It is a reflection of what society trained us to focus on. Visible purchases, invisible opportunities. Then there is debt, especially high-interest debt. This is where money quietly bleeds. Not dramatically, not with headlines, just month after month, a balance that barely moves. Interest that keeps feeding itself, stress that becomes normal. Many people accept these terms as fixed. They are not always fixed. Sometimes one phone call can change the math. A simple conversation with a lender, a request for a lower APR, a balance transfer, a payoff strategy with urgency. No magic, just action, where action matters. Then there are investment fees. This is one of the most expensive invisible leaks in modern life. Because fees look tiny, 1% sounds harmless, almost polite. But over decades, small percentages can eat massive portions of wealth. Why? Because you are not only losing the fee, you are losing what that money could have become, then what that growth could have become, then what the next layer could have become. Time turns small mistakes into giant outcomes, and it can turn simple good decisions into giant outcomes too. That's why the book pushes low-cost investing so strongly. Not because it sounds exciting, because it works. You do not need to become a market genius. You do not need to predict the next hot stock. You do not need a second career as an amateur economist. You need a consistent system, broad diversification, low fees, long time horizon, and automation. For many people, even target date funds can be enough. Choose a fund aligned with your timeline. Let it rebalance over time. Keep living your life. This may sound boring. Good. Boring often wins in money. The exciting stuff usually sells courses. The boring stuff usually builds wealth. Now we arrive at one of the most powerful ideas in the book. The 85% solution. Most people think mistakes come from bad decisions. Often they come from delayed decisions. Waiting for the perfect account, the perfect timing, the perfect strategy, the perfect level of confidence, the perfect paycheck. Perfectionism sounds wise, but financially it can be devastating. Because while you hesitate, time keeps moving. And time is one of the few assets you can never earn back. The person who starts with a good enough plan today often beats the person designing the flawless plan next year. Not because they are smarter, because they started. Action has a compounding advantage. Many people don't need better options. They need permission to begin imperfectly. Open the account. Set the transfer. Make the call. Adjust later. Progress first. Optimization second. That mindset can change careers, finances, health, relationships, everything. Now let's talk about something even deeper. Why people resist systems that would help them. This is where most summaries stop too early. They explain accounts, they explain percentages, they explain tactics, useful, but incomplete. Because this is not mainly a finance problem. It is a psychology problem. People carry invisible scripts about money. Stories absorbed from childhood, culture, family, fear. Rich people are greedy. Money is stressful. I'm bad with numbers. Investing is risky. Talking about money is rude. Wanting more is selfish. These beliefs often operate silently. You don't announce them, you obey them. And then you wonder why progress feels difficult. If someone believes wealth requires suffering, they sabotage ease. If someone believes money conversations are rude, they avoid negotiation. If someone believes they are bad with money, they stop trying. This is why learning tactics without examining identity often fails. The spreadsheet changes. The script underneath remains, and the old script wins. So the real work is not only changing accounts, it is changing assumptions. Maybe money can be calm. Maybe systems can be simple. Maybe asking is not greed. Maybe growth does not require burnout. Maybe you are not bad with money. Maybe nobody showed you a better model. That possibility alone can feel like oxygen. Now let's make the system practical. What should happen when income arrives? Most people use leftovers. Bills first, random spending next, saving whatever remains. And whatever remains is inconsistent. Ramit flips the sequence. Your priorities get paid first. Then, life happens around them. A strong conscious spending plan often follows a simple structure. Fixed costs, investments, savings goals, guilt-free spending, not guilt spending, guilt-free spending. That phrase matters because many people think responsibility and enjoyment are opposites. They are not. The problem is not spending. The problem is unconscious spending. Spending by habit. Spending by insecurity. Spending by boredom. Spending to impress people you don't even like. That spending feels empty because it is disconnected from values. Conscious spending is different. You cut costs aggressively on what you do not care about, so you can spend generously on what you do care about. If convenience matters deeply, pay for convenience. If travel gives you life, prioritize travel. If books matter, buy books. If quality time with friends matters, fund experiences. But choose with intention. Trying to maximize every category creates mediocrity. Trying to impress everyone creates exhaustion. Trying to copy someone else's lifestyle creates debt. This is why many high earners still feel trapped. Their money is scattered across borrowed desires, a nicer car they don't love, subscriptions they barely use, status purchases they made to keep up, upgrades they thought would make them feel enough. And underneath it all, emptiness, because no purchase can solve a problem of self-definition. Which leads to one of the most important questions in the entire book. What is your rich life? Not society's version, not social media's version. Yours. For one person, it's flexibility. For another, it's security. For another, it's sending parents on vacation every year. For another, it's being able to walk away from toxic work. For another, it's living near people they love. For another, it's never stressing over groceries. For another, it's buying time back through help and convenience. There is no universal answer. That is the point. Without a personal definition, you can earn more every year and still feel behind, because comparison has no finish line. Someone will always have more. More status, more followers, more square footage, more visible success. If your standards are outsourced, peace becomes impossible. But once your rich life is clear, decisions become cleaner. You know what deserves money. You know what does not. You know when enough is enough. That clarity is wealth. And here's something few people say clearly. Money is emotional, not just mathematical. People do not overspend only because they can't calculate. They overspend because they are lonely. They underinvest because they are afraid. They avoid accounts because they feel ashamed. They chase status because they feel behind. They hoard because uncertainty scares them. Until emotion is understood, behavior repeats. This is why shame is such a terrible financial strategy. Shame may create short bursts of action, but it rarely creates sustainable change. Relief does, confidence does, simplicity does, momentum does. That is what a good system gives you. Less drama, less friction, less daily decision fatigue, more consistency, more space, more trust in yourself, and trust matters. Because when people stop seeing themselves as bad with money, they finally start behaving differently. Now, imagine two futures. In one future, nothing dramatic goes wrong. You just keep operating manually, thinking often, changing little, feeling guilty, starting over, delaying important moves, repeating the same stress in upgraded forms. In the other future, you spend one serious weekend building a system. You automate transfers, capture employer match if available, attack high-interest debt, open one simple investment account, reduce one fee, ask one uncomfortable question, define one clear rich life priority. Then next month becomes easier, not perfect, easier, and easier matters. Because sustainable progress is built on repeatable ease, not heroic bursts of effort. That is how ordinary people create extraordinary results. Quietly, without looking impressive, without posting about it, without constant struggle. Just aligned decisions repeated long enough. And maybe that is the biggest lesson of all. Wealth often looks less like luxury and more like calm. Calm when bills arrive. Calm when plans change. Calm when opportunities appear. Calm when you spend on what matters. Calm when you think about the future. A lot of people chase visible wealth while missing invisible wealth. Peace, flexibility, confidence, choice, time. Those assets matter too. So yes, earn more. Yes, invest. Yes, optimize the big moves. But do not miss the deeper point. The purpose of money is not to create endless management. It is to support a meaningful life. And if your current system creates more guilt than freedom, it may be time to rebuild the system. Not your worth, not your identity. The system. So here's the real question. If your future was funded, your bills were automatic, and guilt no longer controlled your decisions, what would your rich life actually look like?